Hello, my name is Mary Bear Shannon. I'm a reference librarian at the Haverford Township Free Library, and here is today's Reading with Reference. I want to tell you about a book that I have been reading for our Hooked on History book club. It is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Our group has been reading this in preparation for a conversation about Korea and Korean history. I was not exactly sure what the word pachinko meant, so I actually had to look it up. And then, of course, reading this book, it gave me a little bit more of an idea of what it was. It is a mechanical game that originates in Japan, and it uses a form of recreational. It's an arcade game, but it also can be used for gambling, kind of similar to what the slot machine is here in the West. Anyway, the Hooked on History was hoping to learn more about Korean history, and my primary takeaway from this book is that I learned more about Koreans in Japan, and so I'm interested in our conversation, which will be next week. So Pachinko, again, Min Jin Lee. It's set beginning in the early 1900s with one of the main characters, teenage Sunja, and she's really the adored daughter of a crippled fisherman and a very hardworking mother who runs a boarding house. Sunja falls for a stranger at the seashore near her home in Korea, and he promises her the world, but then she discovers that she is pregnant. But she also finds out that her lover is married, and he wants to keep her as a second wife in Korea, and she refuses to do that. Instead, she accepts marriage offer from a gentle, sickly minister passing on his way to Japan in her boarding house, her mother's boarding house. But her decision to abandon her home and to reject her son's powerful father sets off a dramatic saga that will echo through the generations. This is a really richly told and profoundly moving book. It's really a story of love, sacrifice, ambition, and loyalty. And really from the bustling street markets to the halls of Japan's finest university to the pachinko parlors of the criminal underworld. Lee has really written a complex and passionate book with characters who are including strong, stubborn women, devoted sisters and sons, fathers shaken by moral crisis, and they all survive and thrive against the indifferent arc of history. As I said, this is really a book about Koreans in Japan, and it is a long book. It was definitely a page turner. I highly recommend it, and I was really, invested in what happened to this family. But as I said, I really learned a lot about Koreans in Japan, and I did a little bit of research, and there are ethnic Koreans in Japan that have permanent residency status, and many have become Japanese citizens, and most of those Koreans date their immigration before 1945 and the end of World War II. But then there's also a group of South Koreans who immigrated after World War II, and they're kind of distinct groups. But they are currently the second largest ethnic minority in Japan after the Chinese. I was really surprised. And as of 2014, there were 855,000 ethnic Koreans that reside in Japan. And I did learn a little bit about the history of Korea and their relationship to Japan. In 1910, the Japanese annexed Korea and held it until the end of World War II in 1945. Then, of course, Korea was partitioned because the Soviets occupied the north and the Americans occupied the south. That was partitioned at the 38th parallel. And then there was skirmishing in the years leading up to the Korean War, and in 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, which prompted a UN response led by the Americans, and there was fighting during the Korean War until 1953, when there was an armistice. And as we know today, Korea is still partitioned with Communist Korea in the north and more of a capitalist democracy in the South. But I really did, what I found was really interesting was, yet another society where there is a primary ethnic group that, and kind of I guess I would call it a subclass of a caste of Koreans in Japan who really do suffer under with major discrimination against the Japanese, but yet really persevere, and many of them not having an interest in going back to Korea, but really but are definitely holding on to their own identity as ethnic Koreans in Japan. So the book is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. We can get it in our catalog. You can get it in Libby in digital form, both as an audiobook and an ebook. So that is my recommendation today for Reading with Reference, Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. And I hope you have a great week.